And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This is my post-match reaction, my 5 takeaways from Fulham's draw against Sunderland. It was a 1-1 draw at Craven Cottage, and I'm going to share the 5 takeaways I'm coming out of it. Do want to mention, if you haven't watched or listened already, please do check out the post-match reaction that we did yesterday with Steve Reynolds and the Fulham Shadow, Emilio Dino. We did 3 up and 3 down with them. That's going to be interesting for you to check out. And this is going to be a little bit different. This is my perspective. So I'm going to give you 5 takeaways from the match in about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to go through it. Always want to mention, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. We are getting people on a regular basis that are subscribing to the YouTube channel. So we really do appreciate that. Thank you very much for subscribing on YouTube. Also want to mention, if you're on Twitter and on social media, you're probably seeing a good amount of transfer speculation. It's really starting to turn up. So we're going to have 2 more transfer shows. We're going to have one Monday, and then, of course, on Tuesday as well, 2 transfer shows to the end of the window. So we're going to get you right up to the end of the window with 2 more transfer shows. And hopefully we're going to have some good news with some signings for Fulham. Maybe we have a player or 2 going out as well. So we have a good amount coming up on Cottage Talk in the next couple of days. But let's not waste any time. Let's go through my 5 takeaways from this 1-1 draw. Let's start with number 5. And unfortunately, we have to talk about Leivin Kurzawa, because I'm now convinced that Kurzawa, now we can make the argument we still need more match time from him, but every time I've watched him, I've seen a significant drop-off from Antonee Robinson. If you disagree with me, let me know. But his crossing ability, his passing in general is pretty good. Nothing wrong with it. But his lack of pace compared to Robinson, and basically his ability to get back when you need him back, he needs to be a left back first, has caused problems. It's caused problems in this last match because, to the credit, and I'll be talking about this coming up, Sunderland, they took advantage of Fulham's weakness here, down Fulham's left-hand side. They knew where to go, and they attacked at Kurzawa. So I just want to mention that because, again, I was very hard on Antonee Robinson last season, and he's proven me wrong time and time again. Antonee Robinson is a starting left back in the Premier League, and let's just say Fulham are fortunate to have him. And I think now I'm seeing why they're fortunate, because Kurzawa is just not at his level. He just isn't. So when Fulham have to use a backup, this is where things get a little bit tricky. The guys were talking about this on the last episode. The lack of depth, it does show itself. Fulham starting 11 and maybe 4 or 5 players beyond that are fairly strong. But when you go beyond that, when you have to have a replacement like Kurzawa, I think that has been a problem. On the other side, we don't have a real replacement for Kevin Mbabu. I'm sorry, for Kenny Tete, you have to bring in Kevin Mbabu, and we're not doing that. And we have to play Bobby Decordova-Reid. So the lack of depth, I think, is showing itself a little bit with Fulham, but especially with Kurzawa. That's my number 5. Number 4 goes right with number 5. Sunderland exposed a few weaknesses with Fulham. One was down Fulham's left-hand side with Kurzawa. They just kept attacking, and they knew where they were going. That this is a game plan from Tony Mowbray. He knew the weakness that Fulham had there, and he went right after it. Kudos to him and the players, because they went after that weakness hard. And for them, at the very end of the match, they actually had a goal that was called offside. It was offside, but they attacked down that area to set up what they thought might have been a winning goal. It wasn't a winning goal, but you know what? They kept going after Kurzawa on that left-hand side of Fulham, and it was very effective, and that really just showed one weakness of Fulham. Another one has to be with when Fulham play against teams that I would say in this case, young and hungry. that really go after Fulham, they do tend to struggle a little bit with that pace, with that aggressiveness. And I think this is something that Marco Silva is going to need to look at in the players as well. When they deal with teams that press them, they still seem to struggle, and teams that really just take advantage of Fulham's weakness on the counter. They have to be ready for players with pace. And it just seems time and time again, teams are taking advantage of Fulham's weaknesses. And I can say right now, I think Fulham can be exposed on a counter, and I think they can be exposed when teams press them. Along with that, the situation with Kurzawa was an issue in this match. So kudos to Sunderland for taking advantage of some weaknesses with Fulham. Number 3, and these are both positives. So now we're going to turn to some positives here. Tom Cairney and Marek Rodak both show their value to Fulham. Now, in Cairney's case, I don't know if Cairney is a regular starter in the Premier League. But what I do know is, one, he can start in the Premier League. I'm convinced of that. But he shows his value in coming off the bench with Fulham. He has actually been a leader off the bench and showed leadership by basically taking the bull by the horns when he gets his opportunity to come into the match, usually coming in for Harrison Reed, and basically offers something different. And he is extremely valuable. Basically a change-up to what Fulham are doing when they bring Tom Cairney in. Very valuable. But even in this match, he shows his quality. He absolutely shows his quality and his value to Fulham Football Club. Fulham are lucky to still have Tom Cairney, and honestly, the fact that he has taken on this, I guess you could say, reduced role and ran with it, has been a huge plus for himself and, more importantly, overall for Fulham Football Club. Tom Cairney has been an asset for Fulham this season, and he showed it again in this match. Another player we talked about on the last episode, Marek Rodak, has really proved himself to be a more than capable backup. And I would say this right now, Bernd Leno is going to be the starter and should be the starter for Fulham Football Club. But if you needed someone to be the backup, Marek Rodak is definitely a backup. He's proven himself. If you needed him to start, I think he could start. So Marek Rodak, again, shows his worth. It is in this game. He is playing in these cup matches, but it also shows you that Fulham are in good hands. If for some reason Bernd Leno can't play, Marek Rodak certainly can play and deserves to be the backup. We'll see what happens next season. But I'm very happy with both of these players. I think this is two very positive takeaways to come. Well, actually, one takeaway to come out of this is the play of these two players. Okay, so let's go to number 2. This is just my opinion, and I've seen some commentary on Twitter about him. I think that there are supporters that still have doubts about that he might be a little bit lightweight. He might be pushed off the ball too much. I watched the match. I wasn't there. I watched the match. What I saw was a player that actually was taking advantage of his skill set, and maybe at times maybe could be pushed off the ball, but was also taking advantage of the opposition many times. Manor Solomon, in my opinion, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time he should be given a start in the Premier League over, say, Bobby Decadoveri. Maybe it's time to start Manor Solomon, because I thought for 90 minutes he played well, and it was good for him to get the 90 minutes. I know there's been talk that in the last 5 minutes maybe he got a knock, but we'll see if there's anything to that. But if he's good to go, I know fans might disagree with me. I might start him against Chelsea. I might throw him in there. Him and William. Put William on the right and put Manor Solomon on the left, and let's go with it. Nothing against Bobby Decadoveri. You can play Bobby Decadoveri anywhere. But I think Manor Solomon has the potential to be a little bit higher quality than Bobby Decadoveri. I think we're just scratching the surface with Manor Solomon. I think he might be ready to start in the Premier League. That's my number 2. Coming up next to end the show, I'm going to give you my number one takeaway from this match. Okay, to finish up the show, I'm going to give you my number one takeaway. Before I do that, I think we do have some comments from the Fulham supporters. This is from Kamal, just thanking me for my hard work. Thank you, Kamal. I appreciate that. My friend Chris Goodwin, I know what he's going to say because I'm watching this as we're doing the show. Hello, Russ. Harvey Elliott just scored for Liverpool. Yes, I know he just scored. Fine. Okay. And also from Kamal, says, number 5, in defense of Kurzawa, his game time has been limited. Left-hand side flank is consistently an issue. Yes, it is, but I think it's stronger with Antonee Robinson as your left back. Let's see. And then Kamal says, number 4, do you think our team needs to get younger? Does its energy need to be refreshed? I'm going to make the argument that I think you could be right. I think we do need to get a little bit younger, Kamal. And what's interesting is that some of the players that Fulham have been linked to in this transfer window have been younger. Some have not. Some have been established players in the 25 and 26. But I'm with you. I think that maybe Fulham need to get a little bit younger. I'm with you on that. Okay. All right. Like I mentioned, to end the show, my number one takeaway, it's about the replay. A replay was the worst case scenario, probably for both sides. But go to the stadium light with a very strong side. That's my thought. Now, again, we'll have to see when that match is going to happen. But if you can, I'm saying go with a strong team because at this point, let's go for it. Let's progress into the cup. So that's where I'm going on. I know everyone wants to see who they could potentially play, but I'm saying regardless, go with a strong side to the Stadium of Light and try to move on. That's what I would do. I would go with a stronger side than we saw against them the first time around. Now, like I said, mattering on when this match is played, that will probably dictate what Marco Silva decides to do. It probably won't be as strong a side, but I would try to get as strong as possible to play against Sunderland and have Fulham move on in the cup. At this point, I say let's move on in the cup. The league is the priority. That's my number one. But if you can figure a way to do both comfortably and not affect how you're going to play in the league, let's do it. Let's do it. So I say put out a very strong side against Sunderland. And before I end the show, one last thing I want to say about Sunderland. Full credit to them. I know I said this on the last show. This is not a Sunderland show, but I left impressed by their young players, and I think the future is bright for Sunderland. That supporter base really has been through the ringer. So for me, I think this is good for them. Congratulations for them progressing. And I'm talking about from League One to the championship. And who knows, maybe they get into the playoff. Maybe they get back to the Premier League. And you know what? It's a club that probably deserves to be back in the Premier League someday. So I just want to wish them congratulations on their season so far, their progression into the championship. I want Fulham to win at the Stadium of Light, but I left impressed. That's going to be my last thought on Sunderland. Okay. So that's going to do it for this quick episode of Cottage Talk. Like I mentioned prior, we did do an episode yesterday, same day, that night, with Steve Reynolds and the Fulham Shadow Milledino. They were both at the match, and they shared their commentary. If you haven't listened to it yet, please do check it out. Please also check out this show as well. I hope you like it. Again, we're trying to give you as much content as I possibly can. And before we end the show, one last time, I'm going to mention this, that we will have at least 2 shows about the transfer window coming up. So there's a lot still to look forward to a Fulham Football Club. There's a lot of transfer speculation today on Sunday. So we'll get you all caught up with that on Monday. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and also on Apple Podcasts. It helps other Fulham supporters find us. Well, that's going to do it for Cottage Talk. My name is Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the TalkSport Fan Network.